Thank you. Oopsie. Hey, Antumbra. And everyone who's joining. So yeah, basically on stream today, I know I posted a lot about colossals like Direwolf De-Extinction, which if you've watched my videos by now, you know that that was a lie. And it's technology that we've had for a long time. Since the 90s, we've had CRISPR gene editing for a long time. We've been able to edit like human embryos. We've been able to edit chickens to make them have longer tails and longer snouts to make them look like dinosaurs. And so that's not de-extinction, because de-extinction would mean that they would have to like have the actual direwolf DNA in the living animal, which they do not have. Hey Arturo. Hey Una Aerith. So if you guys have any questions, I'm here, or I can keep talking about it. I have a lot of stuff to say about it, obviously. I posted 3 of the videos so far, and I have a few more I'm gonna post. Well, it's not really a new species. It's just like a domestic dog that has some edited gray wolf genes in it, so that wouldn't classify as a new species. Hey Shadow, how are you? Hey AJ. Hey Liquid Shinjo. So yeah, the latest video I just posted is about the genome claims, because I know a lot of people were confused about that, and that's totally fair. That obviously they are using the fact that this stuff is hard to understand and explain, even if you've worked in this stuff before and you have a PhD. They are exploiting that fact to get the public to believe that what they're doing is de-extinction. And it's gonna have potentially a really detrimental effect on our planet, because already the president is using this as an excuse to basically cut the endangered species list and say, oh, we can just kill all of these species and destroy these ecosystems and, you know, build condos on them, because we can always bring all of these species back to life and bring these ecosystems back to life. And that's just not possible. And even if we could bring one single species back to life, which still has not been done, even for something like as simple as an insect, we can never really rebuild an ecosystem. Yeah, giant squids are cool. I'm pretty good. How about you guys? My favorite biome, I love the desert, but I also love like tropical forests and the beach. I like warm weather. I mean, yeah, that's another question we don't know about. We don't know if like the dire wolves can reproduce. If they can, they might produce offspring that is sterile. Like they might be kind of like mules. We don't really know. So Colossal is like, we also can't really verify any of Colossal's methods, so we don't know how accurate they were, like what sequences they actually used. We just know that it was not direwolf DNA that they used to create the dogs. They said that they are gonna like release a paper next week that I will comment on, but they released a paper in the past on like the relationships of direwolves and whether and what dog, you know, direwolves are most closely related to. But it's like, first of all, direwolves aren't closely related to dogs at all, or wolves at all, really. They're more closely related to jackals, but even then, it's like they went extinct so long ago, and their lineage doesn't really match to anything living super well. Um, and then like on top of that, in the paper, they refused to show any of the statistics for the genetic material that they used to make the claim that um, that gray wolves were more closely related to dire wolves. It was just very sketchy. Like in science, you always want to show all your data and all of your statistics if you have nothing to hide. Um, that's what's usually encouraged in science. That's like how I try to do my science. Hey, handsome Zork. Why not clone humans? So they actually have done that with stem cells. They've used CRISPR to edit human embryos. Usually it's only allowed for diseases that would be like life-threatening to the baby if it was born. But we already have like modified mitochondrial genomes in human stem cells, and that's been already been done for like almost a decade at this point. Yeah, I mean, what Colossal did, Colossal Biosciences, it was definitely a publicity stunt. Um, and the thing is, it's one thing to do a publicity stunt for a good cause if you had real science behind it. But if they had real science behind it, see, it wouldn't be a publicity stunt. That's the entire issue here. They're using technology that has already been around since the 90s and claiming that they are de-extincting something when all they're doing is like editing living dogs. And the problem with that, like I kind of just said before, is like it has horrible implications for actual species that are in danger now, because so many of our ecosystems now are fragile and like barely holding on. And if we are not, it's already difficult to keep these things alive. Like we're losing more species every day because of pollution and climate change and all of these things, a lot of which is like accelerated by humans. And there's always that tension between conservation and the profit of like for-profit companies. And the reason is because for-profit companies, they want more land and they want more resources. So they're always going to try to take land and resources, no matter whether there's endangered species that are living on that land or not, no matter whether those ecosystems are vital for us to be alive on this earth or not, because we do need a certain number of forests and ecosystems for us humans to stay alive. But most people in these big for-profit companies, they don't necessarily care about that. They care about their bottom line. So the problem is, if you start saying you can de-extinct things, all of these big companies and the government, the current government anyway, is going to see that as an excuse to be able to go in and destroy these protected areas and destroy the few ecosystems that we have left. And eventually, I mean, that could just lead to like global collapse. And if we don't have a planet to live on, like that's really all we have, guys. Like, if you take away our planet, right now space travel isn't really feasible for us. So it's a little too soon to be thinking about taking away our ecosystems, especially when you can't actually de-extinct something and you're just lying about it and saying that you can. Let me see what other questions you guys are asking. Can I explain CRISPR a little bit? Yeah, CRISPR, it kind of depends what type of CRISPR you're using, but basically CRISPR is just like an acronym. It's a type of technology we can use to edit genes. I haven't personally worked with CRISPR, but I know people who have. Basically what it does is it allows you to go in and edit like one gene at a time. And the idea with that is that it's really specific to one gene at a time. so that you can't, the goal is usually to like get rid of a disease that the animal or person would have that's life threatening. Or in the case of animals, they've used CRISPR to be able to design how the animal looks. So that's been done a lot, for example, in domestic dogs, including these direwolves, direwolves, fake direwolves. It's been done in domestic dogs over and over again, where they edit the gene, because what they're doing when they edit the gene is they're basically making it express or create a different type of protein. And when you're creating a different type of protein, protein's microscopic, and you have millions and millions of proteins, and that builds up into like what we look like on the outside. Like all of this hair, all of like our skin and whatever that you see in front of you, like this is all protein expressed from my genes. So if someone wanted to alter something about the way that my genes express my DNA, when I was an embryo, like they could have gone in and used CRISPR and they could change my eye color, for example. They could edit the genes that create eye color, or they could edit the genes that would maybe give me a life-threatening disease, or they could edit the genes that make my hair curly versus straight. And so that's why CRISPR has a lot of controversy around it, because you're kind of designing living things. And it can be useful for medicine. You can also use it for medicine, like say to make diseases less deadly. But the danger of it is you can create designer people. You can make people have certain eye colors, certain looks. You can create designer animals like these dogs that Colossal created. So it starts to get ethically very murky, and you're doing all of this against the consent of the embryo that you're manipulating the genes in, because all of this is embryonic. It's not done like after the fact as an adult. You have to do it like in stem cells, pretty much. Thank you, AJ. Yes, I did know that sperm whales and giant squid fight each other. If you guys ever go to the American Museum of Natural History in New York, go to the Ocean Hall, and there's like a really cool diorama of a sperm whale fighting a giant squid on the bottom floor. It's one of my favorites. Well, that's fair, because research is hard. Yeah, and it doesn't, sometimes for like dog breeds, and they might use it for cat breeds, but sometimes they're also doing CRISPR to meet different needs. Like you can notice, dogs who have this gene tend to be better at hunting, for example. So maybe if you're like buying a basset hound, or I don't know like what the elite dog shit is. I don't give a shit about that. But basically the idea is like, let's say you wanted like the most extreme hunting dog. You could also use CRISPR, if you're like a billionaire. You could also ask scientists to use CRISPR to create a dog for you that had superior hunting skills. And that's why for now, luckily, it's pretty limited with use on humans, because as you maybe imagine, once we know more and more about how genes work, you could eventually like potentially make some people smarter. So rich people could pay for their kids to have CRISPR edits to make them smarter, to make them like more conventionally attractive, to make them have certain eye color and skin color, and this can become extremely problematic. And it's the same thing for animals, and we don't really know. This stuff is relatively new, like it's been around since at least the 90s, but we still don't really know like what the long-term effects of these things are. And certainly we should not be like releasing these things into the wild. Yeah, it basically kind of dangerously ventures into a eugenics classist wet dream. What type of dog did they use? So basically, what they did is they were only able to get about between 0.1 to 0.25% of the direwolf genome. and it was a very fragmented genome because they were using samples that were between 13,000 and like, I think it was 72,000 years old. And then, so they noticed which genes were different in the direwolf genome versus the genome of the gray wolf. And then they took the gray wolf and they edited a few genes based on looking at the direwolf genes, but they're not using the direwolf genes in the actual animal. They were just using that as a blueprint to see, like, okay, it looks like direwolves have genes that look like this. So let's edit the gray wolf genes to copy that. So then they took the DNA and the nucleus from those gray wolf cells, and then they put them into cells of a domestic dog. So they did not use any direwolf DNA to make the direwolves. It was literally just gray wolf DNA that they edited. Then they put that DNA into the cells of domestic dogs. And then those cells were implanted in like a domestic dog mother, because we have to have a live animal give birth to a clone. We don't have technology to just reproduce a clone. So then the domestic dog gave birth to them, and there they are. So they're just gray wolves with a mix of domestic hounds. They haven't released what the breeds were. Thank you, Angel. Well, it's not what they did in Jurassic Park, and I see why people get confused, but see, if they did what they did in Jurassic Park, they wouldn't be lying about de-extinction, but they didn't do that. Because Jurassic Park actually hypothetically used real dinosaur DNA, which of course we can't do in real life, but in the movie, okay? In the movie, Jurassic Park took real dinosaur DNA that they extracted from amber, and then they mixed that with the DNA of frogs. But that's not what's happening here. What's happening here is they're just combining the DNA of two living animals together and editing it until it looks like a direwolf. So it's basically the same thing as like Jack Horner's Chickenosaurus project, where they took a chicken and they edited the genes to make it look like it has a longer tail and a longer snout, but it's still just like an edited chicken. There's no velociraptor DNA in the chicken. See what I'm saying? So we still don't have that Jurassic Park technology. Can we clone Chupacabra if we found one? Yeah. If we found a living one. Yes, ask away whatever questions you guys got. Will nature try to adapt to the plastic and chemicals? I mean, it will adapt. Natural selection doesn't have emotions attached to it. So when things evolve, they only evolve because whoever happens to stay alive survives and passes on their traits to the next population or group of animals that stays alive. That's really all it is. So yes, things are technically adaptations, but they're not trying to be adaptations, if that makes sense. There's no the genes and cells aren't like, oh my God, we have to try to save this trait. It's just like, oh, whatever animals happen to live, we're going to pass that down. And that's why no individual or no group of animals is perfectly adapted to anything. Like, we as humans still have a lot of, quote, adaptations that are just kind of left over from when we used to be monkeys, and that we don't need anymore, that make our life harder. But we still have them because we're only here because we are the individuals that survived after millions and millions and millions of years of so many lineages of humans. But a lot of people make that mistake, and I understand how it's easy to make that mistake and think oh, evolution has a greater design to it, but it doesn't. It doesn't discriminate. So if something is alive and it survives and has offspring, As long as those offspring keep having offspring, as long as, you know, your genetic line keeps living on, then those traits are going to get passed on, both the good and the bad, if that makes sense. An example. Yes, they have tried altering chickens to look like non-avian dinosaurs. They've only been able to like elongate the tail and the snout and not done too much. Did nature have safety protocols? No. Nature is a brutal place. Like, if you die, you die. So yeah, okay, induction of species into an ecosystem. So there's a lot of failures of trying to introduce species into an ecosystem to balance it out. A big example, if you live in the US, is like Canada geese and white-tailed deer. Both of those were introduced. The Canada goose actually used to be pretty much extinct in the Northeast, and it was bred and then reintroduced into that area, and now it's gotten to the point where it's an invasive species, meaning like there's way too many Canada geese. Invasive species means it's a species that was introduced into an ecosystem that it's not from, and usually invasive species are really bad for the ecosystem and all the animals that live in the ecosystem, because usually they kind of just take over and then overpopulate the ecosystem and drive out all of that actual like native animals and plants that were thriving in that ecosystem, and that essentially destroys the ecosystem and makes it where like only the invasive species can live there. Another example is like crows, grackles, starlings. Those things that are everywhere were introduced, and you've probably seen them like wherever you are in the US. Yeah, they just kind of take over. So pretty much any species you see that's like taking over, that's probably an invasive species. There's the Australia example I used where they introduced bunnies to Australia. They've destroyed a lot of habitat. And then because the bunnies were kind of fucking everything up, they then started introducing all these other animals to try to eat the bunnies, and then they would have to like introduce more and more and more animals to try to correct what they were ruining in the ecosystem. But of course that just kept failing over and over and over again. So yeah, there's just so many examples of that, and it happens all the time. Okay, let's see. Are the designer dogs actually siblings? I don't know. They haven't released that. Maybe they'll talk about it in the paper. Simon. Yeah, I would kick him in the balls if they were in front of me. Hi, Birdman. Hi, Matt. Can you make someone have blue hair? Probably not. People can have black hair with a blue undertone, but I don't think you can't like CRISPR like neon hair. It has to. So when you edit the genes, you can only edit it. You can only like make a gene express something if it was capable of doing it. So like you can't make a chicken gene start expressing hair instead of feathers. Like that's not going to happen because birds never had hair. If that makes sense. Are they going to put these pups in the wild? That's what they claimed in some of the interviews. I really hope not, because of what I said in one of my latest videos. But they did say in several interviews that they wanted to restore the direwolf to its rightful place in the ecosystem, and they've talked about re-releasing the mammoth. They've talked about bringing back more animals that went extinct millions of years ago, and it's just like nothing that went extinct millions of years ago is going to be helpful to us to restore ecosystems today. And none of those animals should be released into the world because the world is a very, very different place. Yeah, not all crows are invasive, but it depends on the species. Hey, DeAndre. Um, if I made a clone of myself, would I make it bad or good? I mean, I don't want a clone of myself, but like, I would hope it would be good because I think if it was bad, it would try to kill me. Um, Difference between direwolves and regular wolves. Direwolves, we don't even know if they really were wolves. They lived, they went extinct 10,000 years ago, but they lived mostly during the Ice Age. They were basically big wolf looking creatures. They're a lot bigger, likely a lot more aggressive, larger teeth, but, and they're very distantly related to wolves. They're not closely related to wolves. It's kind of like how we call saber-toothed tigers the saber-toothed tiger, but they're not related to tigers. And not all of them are even like in the same phylogenetic group. So yeah, wolves are more closely related to like domestic dogs and jackals and things like that. Well, direwolves are not just a bigger version of wolves because they're not closely related to wolves at all. Okay, let me see. Can we have a clone army? I mean, potentially in the future. The thing with cloning right now is it's really fragile. It's really hard because you have to have like a host to birth the clones. And a lot of the clones don't live very long or they're very sickly, and we don't know if clones can reproduce. And it takes so much money to be able to clone things. That's partially why this company was able to even make these designer dogs and clone them. They have a lot of money. They have a billionaire founder and backers. They have George R. R. Martin backing them. They have a lot of celebrity backers. And I don't have any ill will against George R. R. Martin or the celebrities who backed them because I'm sure that they sold the science in a really convincing way and threw a lot of money at events to convince people. And it is something that's hard to understand if you haven't like done science and you don't have a PhD in it. I totally understand how this could seem like it's a cool way to promote conservation, but it's really doing the opposite, sadly. Army of Raysukas, that'd be scary. Um, Yeah, exactly. The woolly mice, it's the same thing there. They were just kind of like editing the mice to have longer hair. And if you've been to the pet store, you probably already know that they've already done that before. Like there are hamsters with long fluffy hair and there are hamsters with short hair. And that's like all that the woolly mice are. They have been edited to look a certain way, but they have nothing to do with mammoth DNA. There's no like mammoth DNA in that mouse. Ice Age reference always. Um, Japan is allowing scientists to make human animal hybrids. I'll have to look into that. I mean, that sounds horrible. I hope that's not true. I don't think we really have the technology, but um, if you if you put two toothpicks on your cat's mouth, would Colossal consider this to be a dwarf saber-toothed tiger? I mean, probably. They would probably use it for like their donor banquets. Just Photoshop the toothpicks. Cat girls, no. I don't think we want to combine humans with anything, but if we were able to combine them with anything, which we shouldn't, because I think it would be very unethical, because it would probably not end well, and the hybrid would probably be very unhealthy. But They would have to be combined with something like a chimp, like something closer to them. It's not going to look like the cute little bunny girls and cat girls, guys. Exactly, like, yeah, exactly. It's like painting stripes on a stallion and calling it a zebra. Exactly. But you're just painting with CRISPR. Can they use this technology to bring an animal like the white rhinoceros back to life? No. See, that's the whole thing, is they can't really de-extinct something because we still don't have the technology to get DNA from bones and then resurrect that species. That still hasn't been done for anything. Now, maybe it could be done if something went extinct really, really recently, like within the past year or two. Maybe it could be done. No one's done it yet. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's just not possible or if there's just not enough funding. I mean, I would hope it's because it's not possible and not because there's not enough funding, but I would say it's likely not possible. The other problem with things like the white rhino, it's like, well, then you need to find a surrogate rhino to birth that, and there's so few rhinos left in the world. So it's like, you're probably not going to be able to get permission to do experiments on other rhinos like that. Oh, thanks, Tybo. Or Ty Boogie. I love Black Lagoon. Yeah, it could be potentially used by armies in the future, although, I mean, a lot of our military operations now are done with, like, drones, so... I don't know if really like editing people's bodies is going to help too much unless there's a way to like edit our genes so we don't need sleep and things like that. But anything like that is way far in the future. And we don't know what the repercussions would be of that. I hope we don't have AI wars. Yeah, I think if biotech becomes a common thing in war, I mean, I think it would be less about cloning and more about using viruses like COVID and things like that. But I think the problem with that is it's kind of hard to keep that contained to just your enemies. It could always come back to you because we're such like a connected world now. Could we take DNA samples now of rhinos for the future to preserve them? We definitely could. I'm sure people have like taken genomes of, if not rhinos, like other endangered species. It just kind of depends like whether there would be another host species that the genome would work with and whether we have another host species to basically like give birth to these clones and how healthy and viable these clones could be. So there's like a lot of factors there. And then the other issue is, let's say even if we did resurrect something and brought it back and we did use the real DNA and we birthed it and it was healthy and all that. Okay. That's really hard. But let's say we did that. Well, the problem is, like, we need to make sure we still have the correct ecology for it. It could still potentially kind of disrupt or, you know, cause decay in the environment we release it into. And then also, it's not going to have the correct behavior that it needs to survive necessarily. And, like, humans can teach animals behavior to a certain point. Like, that was done actually for whooping cranes, which almost went extinct. But they were raised by humans, and humans, you can look this up on YouTube, like wore crane costumes and practiced crane behavior to kind of teach the cranes social behaviors because cranes have been highly studied. And that works well for birds because birds are really smart. Birds are like kind of similar to primates in terms of how their brain works. They're really intelligent. A lot of them are just as intelligent as primates, and they're very visual like us. Like us and birds, we mostly rely on our vision, whereas a lot of other animals rely on like smell and putting their sense around and hearing. Like that's way beyond our capacity, and sometimes even seeing like crazy different spectrums of light. So the problem is, like, yeah, we could teach cranes enough for them to live in the wild, but could we do that for a lot of mammals? Like, that's hard to say. Can we do that for fish? Probably not. Can we do that for insects? I don't know. Have you ever communicated with an insect? Like, I don't think I have. I think one time I thought a turtle was pretty responsive to me, or a snake, but even then it's like, I mean, so where are they going to learn these behaviors so that they can survive in the wild, right? Because they're not going to have a real parent of their own species to be able to pass down those social behaviors to them. Let's see the other questions. Yeah, Dolly is kind of the last big clone debacle that happened before this, where they cloned a sheep, and I think she died pretty soon after cloning. Let's see. Since the DNA would be outdated if we took it now and resurrected it 50 years later, yeah, you're still missing 50 years of evolution. And you have some behavior that is stored in your genes epigenetically. That's like a whole video I could go into. Yeah, I should make a video on epigenetics. But you also have to learn a lot of behavior from the people you're around. A lot of behavior doesn't get passed down. And that's why, like, we learn a lot of behavior from our parents, for example. Now, there are some species that don't need to learn behavior from their parents. That, like, you know, there's some, like, snakes and some birds and some other reptiles where, like, they're just kind of born and ready to go and they don't need to learn behavior. So those could be kind of good test studies for like the first resurrected things because they don't really need to learn behavior to survive in the wild. But it would still be kind of a dicey thing to start introducing these things back into the wild. Hi, Scrotum Wizard. So the topic is any questions you have about Colossal, cloning, the fake direwolves, any of that. Cause of extinction of the direwolf was mostly climate change. We don't know like the full reason why it went extinct, but mostly climate change because it did live during the Ice Age, like the woolly mammoth and all that, and Earth since then has gotten hotter and hotter and hotter, and it just, you know, has no place to live. And even now, I mean, the poles, they're just melting more and more every day. There's just like polar bears. That's why polar bears and all of these Arctic animals are endangered. So if anything, like introducing these Ice Age animals, number one, like there's not a good environment for them to be in. And number two, they would just like cause more problems for all of the animals in the Arctic that are already extinct. Let's see. How am I doing? I'm doing pretty well. Thank you. This is my natural eye color, so. Yeah, exactly. Today's wolves are better adapted for today. The Loch Ness Monster was confirmed as real. Well, it has not been yet. Oh, cyberpunk cosplay. Yeah, I do want to do a Lucy cosplay. Yeah, you can send me the edit. Jurassic World Rebirth thoughts. I hope it will be good. I don't really know. Oh, I think there's like a second trailer out now, right? So maybe I'll react to that because I only watched the first trailer. Yeah, I actually have a Jinx cosplay I just bought. So I have Jinx, I have Miku, and I have some Sailor Moons I gotta do soon. I still need to watch Arcane though. That is I always love Jinx because I've seen so many like TikToks of her. It's like I kind of know the plot of Arcane at this point, but then I never actually like sit down and watch it. A Godzilla collab? I mean, that would be awesome. I love Godzilla. Why would they want to bring the direwolves back? I think they're focusing on like woolly mammoth and direwolves because they're super flashy animals, right? It's like it wouldn't be as sexy to be like, oh, we're gonna bring back, this poison dart frog that went extinct because of global warming. People, billionaires and celebrities might not want to support that as much. But if you go up to them and you're like, hey, we want to, do Jurassic Park, but with a woolly mammoth and a direwolf, and we can actually make this happen, like that gets people's attention more, which I understand. And if Colossal actually was successful in doing that, that would be cool. That would be great. I mean, I don't know if it would be great long term for the world, but it would be better than like what they're doing now, um, which is claiming to do that when they haven't. But um, I, it's still like it doesn't seem like they're really interested in working on species that were recently extinct, especially if you go on their website. Like they're just very heavy handed on like we want to bring back species that went extinct millions of years ago, and that's all they've ever said. But then like in interviews they'll kind of act like, oh well, we're restoring earth, we're restoring the extinct species of earth. um but that's not what they're doing if they're only trying to bring back these flashy animals that went extinct millions of years ago, and they don't even have the technology to do that anyway. So um yeah, exactly. It's a lot of time and money wasted on technology that is pretty old, honestly. Um, Probably the worst animal you could bring back. I mean, I think dinosaurs would be pretty bad to bring back, like T Rex and stuff like that. Just because I think anything super big or anything that could have the possibility of being super invasive, like an insect, like a harmful insect, something that could spread across the world quickly would also be bad because if you're really big and can like destroy plants and walk on them, or if you're small and you can like spread across the world really quick and take over ecosystems, either of those would be the worst because that would mean like the most destruction of ecosystems. The dodo, I mean, it's fine. I think like actually out of all of the extinct animals to bring back, like big extinct island birds, like the dodo or the adsbill or the moa would be probably the least harmful to bring back, honestly, because they don't. It's like they were fitting well into their ecosystem. They were hunted out by humans, and they can't really get around the world because they're flightless, so they're pretty easy to control if things start going wrong. Um, they're easy to kind of get out of the ecosystem. So honestly, like that would be a better thing to bring back. But at the same time, like I don't think it would be super helpful in terms of like scientific progress other than just kind of learning how to de-extinct something. But I know, because I also study birds, since I study bird-like dinosaurs, I mean, even dodos, like, people have looked at the dodo genome, and no one can even agree totally on what the dodo looks like, and we have, like, pretty complete genomes of that. So even with something like that, no one has been successful yet in bringing it back to life. Um, the great auk, yeah, the great auk would be also a great one to bring back. Are dinosaur chicken nuggets accurate to real dinosaurs? Kind of, because whenever you're eating a chicken nugget, you're eating dinosaur meat, because birds are living dinosaurs. Can we bring back Godzillas? No, unfortunately, Godzilla is not a real species. We have a lot of drawings of the dodo. I don't think the problem is that there weren't any photos of the dodo. Um, so I've actually seen a lot of students at conferences working on papers where they're trying to piece together what the dodo looks like. But based on the reconstructed genome, we do know that it is most closely related to pigeons. So, like, most of us agree that it probably looks like kind of a big, fluffy pigeon with big, fluffy feathers. Um, and we can kind of guess what it looks like from descriptions. We have a lot of descriptions and a lot of drawings, but for some reason, it's like the one bird where no one, like, hunted it and, like we have skeletons of it, but no one, like, made a stuffed skin of it. Yeah, we might have parts of it, but it's just like no one has. Anytime you see an image of a dodo, like it's been composited and reconstructed. There's a lot of really well done, like, dodo reconstruction sculptures. Favorite dinosaur, Velociraptor, and the bird-like dinosaurs. Do I have a favorite Godzilla? I mean, I just like Godzilla in general. Like, I mean, I like the new one. I like the new ones are just like fun to watch, but then I also like the old ones because it's cool to see like how they made things happen with, the resources they had. Yeah, we do. We actually have passenger pigeon specimens in museum. Like in the museum, we have stuffed skins of passenger pigeons. So there have been several companies. I can't remember if Colossal was one of them, but there's definitely another company as well that have been trying to bring back the passenger pigeon, but they have not been able to. So again, that kind of shows you like where our technology is. And this other company is also a privately funded company. And they still have not made any progress in de-extincting the passenger pigeon, and that went extinct really recently. Hi. Yeah, Shin Godzilla is really cool. Best animals to bring back, flightless birds, like I said, because they'd be easy to control if things were getting out of hand in an ecosystem. Um, I don't know. I think that would be the best one, or something that is really slow moving, maybe like a tortoise. An extinct tortoise could be a good first one. No, Spinosaurus didn't look like a blobfish. My favorite Godzilla monster. I don't know, I like so many. Yeah, I watched Power Rangers as a kid a lot. I did a video on like the dinosaurs. Opinion on mammoths. I love mammoths. Like I think mammoths are cool. Um, yeah, I think bringing back the sabertooth would not be a good idea. I mean, it would probably be about the same as bringing back a real direwolf. Yeah, and there used to also be buffalo across the US. There's lots and lots of recently extinct animals. It's kind of crazy once you start looking into it. Thanks, Dark Weasel. Yeah, I'm trying some red lipstick today. Did other animals go extinct after the dodo? I don't know about like animals that fed on the dodo, but like I know there's just a lot of flightless birds on islands in general that went extinct because of human hunting, like the Addsbill in New Zealand. There's a lot of rails that, even if they weren't flightless, rails just like are not as strong of flyers. The moa, which was like a giant, it looks kind of like an ostrich, but it was like a lot bigger. Um, so if you look into like islands and extinct birds, there's so many cool extinct bird species on islands that went recently extinct. Like harpy eagles, they were like giant eagles. But yeah, I'm sure like the ecosystem suffered whenever these animals were killed. And yeah, a lot of them were killed by hunting, but also because of rats. Because if you think about it, it's like weird at first. It's like, why rats? Like, how could rats kill these giant flightless birds? But if you think about it, like humans were coming over on ships, and then the rats are coming from mostly like Eurasia, so Europe and Asia, and they're like coming off the ships and going into the island, and the rats are eating the eggs of these giant flightless birds. So their babies are getting eaten, and then the adults are getting hunted by humans. So it was kind of like a double hit that way. I mean, bringing back recently extinct animals, it's hard because we haven't really even been able to clone like living animals without having them be pretty sickly, like Dolly the sheep, for example. So, and no one has tried de-extincting anything. Um, so I don't know how easy it would. I mean, I don't think it would be very easy because I think it would have been done by now. The Thunderbird, I'm not sure what that is. If you mean like the golden eagle is like the closest thing I can think of as like the Thunderbird in real life. When an animal goes extinct and the ecosystem suffers, does the ecosystem go through evolution? Yes, because every living thing goes through natural selection. So whether you're a plant, an animal like algae, a mushroom, those are the main kingdoms of living things. Also bacteria and archaea. Those are like all the possible living things you could be. Um, Basically, whoever lives to the next generation, they're going to have traits passed on from the generation before, and they're going to pass their traits on to the next generation if they're able to like procreate and create more of themselves. So yeah, like even when an ecosystem's being destroyed, everything in that ecosystem is still evolving because some individuals are dying and some individuals are surviving. And whoever survives and continues to pass on their traits is going to create a lineage that evolves over millions of years. I don't think the mother really matters. Like, it's not about whether the mother is a gray wolf or a domestic dog. It's more about the fact that the actual embryo needs to have real direwolf DNA in it. So the problem is they only have gray wolf and domestic dog DNA like in the embryos. And they don't, it doesn't really matter. Like the mother, yeah, the mother will exchange a little DNA with the fetus, but it's not going to really like be the core makeup of what the genetic of makeup of like the baby is. The main thing is like if they were actually going to make a direwolf, instead of using a gray wolf genome, they should have got like a direwolf genome and then fill in the gaps with the gray wolf and then put that into the domestic dog. That would be what Jurassic Park would do. But they didn't do that part. And it's probably because the DNA is too old and fragmented and they couldn't. So I don't see why you wouldn't if this was kind of your whole pitch. I mean, I don't know. You know, who knows? People are weird. Terraforming a new planet. I don't really know a lot about that, honestly. I mean, it would be really hard. We don't even have the capability to space travel. If we did terraform a new planet, I mean, it would be miserable for us in our lifetime. Because we would probably not be able to breathe most of the time without like a lot of wearing gear, which I personally hate. Is genetic diversity necessary for a thriving species, and does cloning change that? Yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, genetic diversity is absolutely necessary. That's why, that's why we in human culture, like, and a lot of animals in general, like, that's why there are taboos of like, having sex with your family members, because that's going to create less genetic diversity because you're just like pooling the same genes over and over and over again. So evolution encourages us to be with people that are different than us, that are outside our group of relatives, and that's to increase genetic diversity. But yeah, the problem with cloning is if there aren't really enough genomes to make from different populations that aren't related to each other, or it's not the same genome used over and over, then yeah, we would definitely run into that problem where like there's not enough genetic diversity going on, unless maybe you could make up for it by like filling in the gaps with wolves. Like, let's take this case. Okay, let's say they did actually de-extinct the direwolf and they had a direwolf genome, and let's say they only have one direwolf genome. Maybe they could like take gray wolf genes from different populations and fill in gaps with that and like have a different population for each individual clone. Maybe that would help. It might not be enough. That's something we would have to test. You mean the Tasmanian devil? There are people trying to bring that back. Can we use chimp DNA into a human? Maybe. I don't think we want to. Why they use a dog and not a wolf as a mother? I think just because honestly it's easier to deal with dogs. Also, it's very difficult to work on animals. You have to get what's called an IACUC, IACUC, and that I forgot what all the letters stand for, but basically you have to apply for one of those when you're working on animals in science to make sure that everything you're doing is ethical. So it might just be that they weren't allowed to work on gray wolves because usually species that are wild or and native or threatened or endangered are not allowed to be used for science. So probably they just use the domestic dog because that's what they were able to like get a permit to be able to do, which again would be fine. It's just like they didn't use direwolf DNA in actual clones. That's what really like what the issue is. Gorosaurus. I can't remember if I did a video on that. That sounds familiar. How could they call it direwolf when they had already edited? They only edited gray wolf DNA. So yeah, the kind of loophole that they use, they call it direwolf because they edited the gray wolf DNA to make it to basically make a wolf slash domestic puppy that has the facial features and larger size of a direwolf, but it has none of the DNA. Because you can edit genes and make them express physical traits or create physical traits that look like another species. But that doesn't mean that they genetically at all are the same. And that's why it's difficult to know which species are related to each other, because two different species could look almost exactly the same and not be related to each other at all. Like in birds, for example, a big example of that is like flamingos and grebes. So grebes, kind of a weird bird, but you guys have probably seen them. They basically look exactly like loons. They look exactly like mini loons. But when you do analysis on their DNA, when you do like evolutionary analysis, we find that they're more closely related to flamingos than they are to loons, even though they look exactly the same. And that's because like that's what we call convergent evolution. That's when two animals can look exactly the same, but they are not closely related and they don't really share a close common ancestor. A bigger like scale example of convergent evolution is the fact that all vertebrates, meaning all animals with a spine, have arms. We all have like the same arm bones and like, or sorry, this is the opposite of convergent evolution, but like, for example, like dolphins have arm bones, bats have arm bones, birds have arm bones, but they're all just different configurations, even though we all look different. Those are genetically coming from the same place in general. So not everything is as it seems on the outside. The only way to truly test if something is really related is to test the genetics of it. The problem with fossils is we can't tell what is convergent evolution a lot of the time. Sometimes we can, if we have a lot of evidence, but it's hard because usually we aren't able to get DNA for the fossils. So that's why we have to be really, really picky about the anatomy and study living animals and living genetics to get like a big picture, and do our due diligence on the science for that. The wolves around Yellowstone, I don't really know too much about that, honestly. Um, but national parks are kind of a different thing because national parks are very regulated because they have rangers that live there, so they have scientists and other types of rangers that are like living there year round, and like they have tags on all these animals, they're tracking all these animals. Um, but that's like still different because wolves are something that exists today. I'm not sure if they're native to Yellowstone, but I would think that they would be. But direwolves went extinct like 10,000 years ago. So they have nowhere on Earth today that would be like a place for them to live. Hey, Luna. Um, Thanks, Handsome Zork, for coming. The Loch Ness Monster, I mean, that would be more like bringing back Plesiosaurus, which we cannot do sadly because it's too old. It's as old as the end of the Cretaceous. Yeah, they could keep breeding and having direwolf characteristics, but they're not going to have any direwolf DNA in them. And we don't know if they can breed. They might not be able to breed, or if they do breed, the offspring they produce might be sterile. What if they made protosaurs with existing theropod dinosaurs? The problem with bringing back the Mesozoic dinosaurs, like dinosaurs from the Cretaceous and Jurassic and all that, is we don't have any DNA. We can't even get like what's called ancient DNA. So ancient DNA is what we can get like from the direwolves and from woolly mammoths and things like that. But we can only really do that for stuff that's super recent. Like, you know, thousands, tens of thousands years old. We can't go really that far beyond that. And we can't get DNA for any of the Mesozoic dinosaurs because they're all fossils, and fossils are just rock. They're rock that has replaced all of the soft tissue. So even though it looks like you might be looking at the skin or soft tissue in a dinosaur fossil, it's just like skin that was then replaced by the rock it was buried in. So we see like what it looked like, but we can't get any of the micro molecules it was made up of because it's not actually like skin anymore. So that's a problem. So, oh, new dinosaurs. Yeah, people have tried to like use CRISPR to edit chickens to look like dinosaurs, but they haven't been super successful. They've been able to have chickens have kind of longer snouts. They look kind of like crocodile-y almost. And they've had chickens have like slightly longer tails, like a few extra vertebrae longer. Other than that, they haven't really had much updates on that. So I don't know why. I don't know if they ran out of funding or like if they just kind of weren't able to find any more genes to edit. Yeah, Plesiosaurus is not a dinosaur, but it's still really cool. It doesn't have to be a dinosaur to be cool, guys. Hey, Jazz. When I visit the Direwolves and Masato cosplay, I mean, yeah, if they're okay with me, like, dunking on them. I don't think they want to invite me. Fossils of rock, literally. I mean, yeah, it is also an ethical question of whether we should bring something back. And like I was saying before, CRISPR has a lot of ethical questions attached to it. Because, I mean, it's the closest we can kind of get to playing God with creating what people look like or what traits they have, what traits an animal has. And that might not be so much of a problem, except for the fact that profit, runs global economies, and anything driven by profit might not be in our best interest. And anything in science can be overtaken and used to try to make a profit, and that's the problem with stuff like this. Once it exists, it can't just be contained and be like only used for good science. No, of course, companies are going to be trying to use it to gain profit, and usually their goals are going to conflict with our goals for well-being and like the well-being of the planet. I guess send on, well, you could send on either one. Maybe Insta. Yeah, I'll tell Colossal to get in the Ava. Tell the world what they've really done. Pay for their sins. Oh, Gattaca, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it's gonna be something sold to zoos, probably sold to celebrities who want fancy pets. I mean, that's the other thing about the Direwolves. And again, I have nothing against George R. Martin or any celebrity that backed this, because this stuff is super hard to understand, and they were swindled by this company. But I mean, the other thing about like one of the main reasons you can tell that these aren't direwolves is they did not rip George R. Martin to shreds when they were sitting next to him. I mean, these things would be huge and aggressive animals, like probably the equivalent of like a tiger. Like anyone who owns tigers doesn't usually casually sit next to their tiger, and the ones that have paid dearly for that, like many times with their lives. But these act like dogs, they act like domesticated dogs, and they might have a little wild streak because they have that gray wolf DNA, but they're certainly not a ferocious direwolf. Recapping my thoughts on the direwolf, I just posted a bunch of videos about it, and I have more to post, but basically, synopsis is they are not direwolves. They're just edited gray wolf genes that were then inserted into domestic dog cells, and then those were inserted into a domestic dog mother. That mother gave birth, and so we have puppies that are a mix of domestic dog DNA and gray wolf DNA. So they have not de-extincted anything. Favorite dinosaur, the pink one. I know she's not technically a dinosaur, but I love pink. How does CRISPR work? You basically use it to edit genes that are going to produce a certain like physical trait or disease or personality trait, and you manipulate it. You basically like microscopically manipulate that gene. I don't know the full, like, I've never used CRISPR myself. I've done genetic work, but I haven't done CRISPR, so I don't know, like, literally what it's like. But that's the general overview of how it works. If I could keep a dinosaur as a pet, would I? Not unless like I was rescuing it. I mean, because birds are living dinosaurs, and part of me has always wanted like a conure or a bird, but I ultimately decided like I just don't want to get one because I just think there's something really sad about like a bird having to live in a cage. Um, and they just live so long, and they're just such like smart, they're such intelligent social creatures that they really like, it's like you really have to treat them like another person living in your house. um Also, I have cats, so I can't really. But if it was something more like a velociraptor, I mean, I wouldn't buy one. Like, if Jurassic Park came out tomorrow, like, I would not buy one. But if it was like, oh, this stray velociraptor has nowhere to go, like, sure. But I don't want to support. I mean, it would also depend on a lot of things. Would this be a for-profit company making these velociraptors? Like, what's going on there? But ultimately, I don't think it's a good idea. We have enough problems with the ecosystems and extinct animals on the earth right now. We don't need the problems of Jurassic Park. I feel like, well, I haven't watched the second Rebirth trailer, but I don't know. So I feel like I haven't been able to see much of the Rebirth Spino, but I always loved Jurassic Park 3 Spino. It's like my favorite Spino I fell in love with. So I'm gonna say that until I see more of the Rebirth Spino. Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of like crazy science that's been done with CRISPR. I think the reason it's not usually out in the press to the public is because it is so controversial. And when you're trying to keep funding for something controversial, the last thing you want to do is to have the public kind of limit your funding for that thing. So I think that's why it's not super common knowledge if you're not in science. Least favorite dinosaur? I don't really have a least favorite dinosaur. Titanoboa for Chamber Secrets. That's terrifying. I do not want Titanoboa back. Can you hear my cats in the background? Yeah, Primal War. I watched the trailer for that. I would need to do like a reaction video. Favorite dinosaur in Jurassic Park, Velociraptors. I love how they made them really smart. Hey. You're a microfossil paleontologist. That's awesome. Higurashi, I have not seen it. Yes, Luke is the loud cat. He stomps around. He's feeling better because he got his tooth taken out last week, but he's feeling a lot better now. No, I don't want a pet dog. I mean, it's just a dog with gray wolf genes in it. It's kind of like, I mean, it kind of already exists. Like, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of Animal Planet shows and YouTube videos about people who breed wolves with domestic dogs, and that's like basically literally what Colossal did. They just like edited it, they just did it in a fancier way by editing the genes to make it look like a direwolf from Game of Thrones. But dogs that have wolf DNA are notoriously like not great to have as pets, because depending on like how much DNA they have or how the DNA is expressed, like they can be really aggressive, they can be really violent. I mean, it's the same as trying to have any big wild animal as a pet. It's just like, it's usually not a good idea. Hi, from Argentina, welcome. But yeah, and I don't support what they've done so far, so. Is it possible to bring back a mammoth? I mean, it depends how, like, complete... It depends on a lot of things. First of all, we need a pretty complete mammoth genome. Number one. Number two, we need a compatible host mother. And we don't know if elephants really would be a compatible host mother. That hasn't been tested. Also, it would be really hard to get permits to work on elephants because they are endangered species themselves. And they're very intelligent species as well. So I honestly don't know. It seems like it's not super feasible because mammoths, I mean, same thing as passenger pigeons and the dodo, like a lot of private companies have been trying to bring these things back for a long time. And Tasmanian tiger too. And there's been no updates, no progress, no published science, no published data. So it's like, it doesn't seem super possible, because I think if they could, they would, because then they would genuinely make more of a profit on it. But they just haven't, even though these companies have been like established for decades at this point. Yeah, I do have education on genetics, and I mean, gene pools are like part of that. Thank you for following me on Insta. But yeah, so I'm a paleontologist. I have a PhD in paleontology, but my PhD and master's were also in like evolutionary biology and some genetics. And then I did a postdoc doing genetic work. So, because I think it's important to really understand like evolutionary biology and genetics, even though I am a paleontologist, because the questions I'm interested in, like I'm interested in dinosaurs because they're cool, but I'm also interested in how dinosaurs evolved and how they became all of these crazy birds or living dinosaurs today. And to answer a lot of the questions I want to answer, I kind of have to know like a little bit from all these different fields of science. Yeah, close. So yeah, the name Reisuka, my first cosplay on TikTok was Rey from Star Wars. And I love Star Wars, and my first anime cosplay on TikTok was Asuka, and I love Asuka. She's like one of my favorite anime waifus of all time. So I combined those two and got Reisuka. Don't baby elephants spend a year and a half in the womb? I am not sure, but that could be totally true. Thanks for coming, AJ. Oh, that's awesome. What do you like to cosplay? I'm always like interested in what other people like to do. Hi, Plizzes. The jumpsuit, the latex ones are really hard to put on. The other ones really aren't bad. Just feels like a giant like onesie. Oh, it's awesome. From Houston, that's cool. It's really hot where I am right now. Yeah, live dino facts. Well, I'm more talking about like cloning and direwolves right now, but you can ask anything. Thanks, Jason. Difference between capybara and chupacabra. Chupacabra is a cryptid, not like a real animal. And then capybara is a rodent. It's a real animal. It's a giant rodent that lives in South America. Oh, that's awesome. The Java Center, like NYCC and stuff. Yes, pygmy triceratops would be very cute. Like, or pygmy, I think pygmy protoceratops out of the herbivores would be super cute. Or pygmy, teacup psittacosaurus. Teacup pterodactyl. Except then it would start attacking you and fly in your face. Do I make any cosplays? Sometimes I do. If it's more like a closet cosplay, I do. Sometimes I'll modify them. It just kind of depends. Like, I mean, a lot of them I kind of buy the base. I don't really know. I know like basic sewing. I like, I don't know. I can sew a patch on something and like hem stuff ish. I don't know much, but I'm pretty good at modifying stuff, so I usually modify stuff and style my wigs, but I don't like put too much work just because I have to do a lot of cosplays and I do the dino research and like I do actual paleontology and science and I do dino research for the videos, write for the videos, sometimes edit the videos, even though I have like great writers and editors too that help out, like Cymic. But I'm super busy because I am like a scientist and content creator. So I just try to minimize like time where I can. But eventually if I had enough free time, I would love to like learn how to sew and stuff and like make latex. Tips for beginner cosplayers, just like use whatever you have, like do a closet cosplay, like pick your favorite characters and just start doing videos in them and have fun with it. And see if you like it. You know, that's what I did like with my Ray cosplay. All I did was just like put my hair into her buns and I had a white V-neck shirt and then I wrapped a belt around my arm. That was literally it. That was how I started TikTok. Cosplay TikTok. Hey Deadpool, thanks for coming. Well, I have other other skills that are not from my PhD. Like, I'm really good at drawing and painting, singing. But it's just that like I'm sure I could get good at sewing and whatever. It's just that that stuff takes so much time. It's like you only have so many hours in the day, and then you also have to have time to take care of yourself and take care of your mental health. Um, which is something I'm trying to do more. I used to be really bad about that. But it's important, and you need to like have time to sleep, even though sleeping is hard. The next con I'm planning on going to for now is LA Expo. And what's the other one? Oh fuck, I just got a badge to it. Anyway, there's this other con in Dallas. I will announce that I'm also going to. I can't remember the name right now. Yeah, they're not full direwolves. They're just gray wolf genes that have been modified and put into domestic dog cells. My Mazato's shenanigans. Yes, I will be getting back to those soon. I also just got a new camera, so I'm excited to play around with that. I want to make some cinematic shit, guys. That's good. Yeah, I love Arizona though, but yeah, there's some cosplayers I know that can make like anything, which is really cool. Um, yeah, it's just, but usually those people, they're really good at making cosplays, but they usually aren't content creators because like making things can take months. And if you're a content creator, I mean, you're having to make videos every single day. Um, like for example, like these direwolf videos, like this news came out 2 days ago, so and of course I wanted to talk about it immediately with you guys, so I had to spend like all yesterday writing what I want to say, filming it, editing it till 1 a.m., waking up, editing more, posting it, like that's like a lot. Like content creation is really awesome and cool because you get to make your own schedule and do what you want, but like it is a hustle. So like you can have side hobbies and stuff like that, but you have to really like plan in the time for it. And if like one cosplay is, and it kind of depends, like I like to wear a bunch of different cosplays, but if you're someone who really wants to focus on making armor, that's really cool. Like, or like the people that make the FNAF animatronic cosplays, I love those are always really cool. But usually people who are focused on that, that's kind of like their entire thing, like all of their content revolves around that and stuff, and that's great. That's just like not what I do, because I like to focus more on like comedy skits and unhinged shenanigans and the dinosaur videos, of course, and like extinct random science videos. Thanks for coming, Julie. Well, that's awesome. Good luck pursuing content creation. Yes, I usually pack like 2 huge suitcases for the cons, and then I think I just need to like pack 2 smaller suitcases instead of one big one, because like what always happens to me is I pack one big one and then it's always overweight and it's like, ugh. And then I'm like carrying a bunch of shit. So yeah. Oh, thanks, Ty Boogie. Yeah, I love Neon Genesis. So And it just means a lot to me. It connects to my life a lot. Presented by Timu, that's funny. Which dinosaurs do I want to see in Jurassic Park type movie? I mean, I always love seeing like Velociraptors, Spinosaurus, Baryonyx. I would like to see like an actual big Giganotosaurus. Um, yeah. I don't know. The Spino in Primitive War, like Loki looks cool. The Raptors look a little like people in suits, but like the Spino looks pretty cool. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I think I do. I tend to stick to characters that I really relate to. So because like I can do a better job with them because I'm just like very tuned into them, and Mazato's like pretty much like I feel like Mazato's kind of based on me almost. So we're very alike. So it's very easy for me to do her. Hey guys. Thank you, Super Bro. How would I fix the direwolf thing if you had unlimited funds? I mean, well, I guess the ideal thing in a way would be if they